On this episode of Watch Time, we're going to be talking about user-generated content. This will be a three-part series where we're going to discuss why you need user-generated content, the pre-production of user-generated content, and then the actual production and post-production process. Starting with part one today, we'll explain to you why this is crucial for your business right after this. Welcome back to Watch Time, everybody. I'm joined again with our in-house video production, video editing expert, Joshua Lawhorn.
Hey.
What's up, Josh? Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
I thought Josh would be a great addition to this series that we're putting together. It's a three-part series. We're going to be talking about user-generated content. Maybe you've heard of this as UGC, cell phone content, things that are being created by the actual, company or person that maybe owns the brand. And what I'm really hoping to kind of have this conversation with you is maybe from a strategic standpoint, we could talk a little bit about video marketing, but also I want to talk to you about maybe from a production standpoint, because there are principles of production and storytelling that I think still fit within user-generated content. And I think that's one area where a lot of companies kind of miss the mark,
Yeah. While it would be great for clients to come to us for every single project, I don't think that's absolutely necessary. Mm-hmm. One thing about user-generated content that comes to mind immediately is behind-the-scenes footage.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. And I think, that's a big thing that I know we use a lot of, and we've seen success with it. I know other clients, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. But I guess the biggest thing I want to do with this part one, and what we're going to be discussing on this episode in particular, is why user-generated content. Because I do feel we get a lot of clients that they're kind of surprised when I'm out networking and things like that. They go, oh, you're probably going to tell me you're a video production company, so you're going to tell me that I should work with you. And I've said on other podcasts and networking, I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you that, you need to do what works for your brand. I do think that there's a place for us, but I also think there's a place for user-generated content. And I think that's why this first part is so big, because I think a lot of people out there, and those of you watching and listening might be thinking, well, video production company, they want to do professional content. They don't think that we should have amateur content. Or you might be thinking, I'm a brand and I don't have time, or my brand, shouldn't have the user-generated content because it's unprofessional or it's unnecessary. And I really think in this first episode, I want to dispel a lot of that. And I'm going to start off with why I suggest it to clients. And I think a lot of that is because a healthy video marketing strategy has both professional content and user-generated content. And a lot of it is dependent on, the customer journey, where the client is at that point, what content, they're interacting with. And also, I think it adds authenticity to the brand. We follow the video marketing blueprint method that Ben Amos had put out, and that's kind of how I was trained for video marketing and video strategy. And he always preached that, and I believe that to be true. We've even seen it with stuff that we've done in our brand. So I think really, for anybody that's listening, and you can really see this with other brands, but you got to have a balance of both. You got to have professional content, but you got to have content that says, hey, we're people, we're a company. There are people in this company, and we're part of culture just like you. We're like you are just like us, and that's where I think this user-generated content really comes in.
Yeah, I think it works best for small to mid-sized businesses. I know we were talking earlier about what companies we don't necessarily see user-generated content from, and a couple that came to mind, I think, were Nike and Coca-Cola. But then if you look at sports, take the Browns, for instance. If you go on their Instagram, you'll see, fans posting their reactions to certain plays, and they're resharing that because it's just great for business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even with stories, you'll see these brands shared in their Instagram stories. TikTok's very user-generated. Anything that's not user-generated can make it, but it's not going to make it like something that somebody else, produced themselves. And I think that's I think there's so much content today, and this is one thing I think people should consider. There's so much content that people want authenticity. Mm-hmm. I really think that's key. And I think by
I
not,
think that's why documentaries are so popular right now.
yeah, I agree. I think like there's so many people are getting into that. Like I feel like back maybe like 2000, early 2000s, like I feel like there were documentaries out, but they weren't as publicized. And I feel like now like everybody's talking about, oh yeah, I was watching this documentary on Netflix, or oh, did you see this like new Hulu documentary that came out? And I do feel like that people are looking for that. They want real life. And I think it's because the content, so much content exists that like you get tired of seeing only content that's produced, like professionally produced, for them.
Curated, beautiful.
Yeah, because life's not that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely think that like this is why you need to have both, and that was actually one of my points was brand authenticity. And like we were talking about, I think that's key. Another thing that I would say to clients, and I think this is important, is we can't be everywhere. Like we have a client that they went out of town for a training event and we couldn't be there. I would have loved to have been there, but we were working on other projects for them and just wasn't possible. And they captured some of that content using their phone, and then we were able to edit that for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I mean, you can't,
You don't necessarily have to, if you like hire a production company and you like are on location at some important event and you're taking footage, you don't necessarily have to like pass that off to your production company though for them to edit. You can also post it right then and there.
Oh yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
There's so many different ways to go about this.
Well, and I think the rule of thumb would be, in my opinion, like, and we've seen this with clients, even with the professionally produced content, and I think all stays true to like using your cell phone is, when you're in a unique position to capture content, if there's an event that's going on, if something cool is happening in your office, it's somebody's birthday, and, maybe there was a surprise, you brought somebody in, or whatever that may be, I'd say, like, as a company and organization, like, capture that. You may not use that today. Maybe it's not going directly to your social media, like you're saying, and you may not use it tomorrow, but like think about like down the road, like maybe you guys are like, you capture that birthday footage, you capture some stuff that's going on, maybe you do like a company Halloween party, you're doing all these things, and all of a sudden, internally you're like, hey, we want to produce something about company culture, and they're like, oh, how are we going to do that? Well, you can do it yourself. You have all the stuff. Save it, keep it. Like if you go to an event, maybe somebody's like speaking at your company and it's a huge opportunity and you're like, oh, wish we could have had someone record this. It's important. It's like still capture it and get it. And maybe you do something yourself. Maybe you do save it for a professionally produced thing later. Maybe, maybe you just kind of put it in the archive and dust it off down the road. There's nothing that's wrong with that. It's like, it's better to have it than not. And it's better than, just assuming like, oh, we couldn't hire somebody, so oh well.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, outside of that, like, how we can't be everywhere, another aspect of why user-generated content is so important is because the cost of production. I just feel like certain clients want us to do certain things, and I don't feel like it makes sense. And,
like for what?
Well, like, things that, like, could be user-generated, they want to pay us, and it's like, great example of this would be, like I was just saying, the Halloween party. Someone goes, hey, we'd love to hire your production company to come in and record our Halloween party and put together a sizzle reel for us. And, like, what would that cost? And then all of a sudden we're like, well, let's see, we're going to send out one person. They're going to be there for an 8-hour day or say a 4-hour day, depending on what you want to do. So let's just say half day. We cut this together. We put music with it. You get revisions. We put graphics in. Thanks for participating. And next thing you know, you're in this thing like over $1,000, maybe $2,000-$3,000. Just to, what is that going to do for you? You're going to put
and
that
it's
on
a month later, by the way.
Oh, yeah. We have to produce it, so it's going to take some days. And, exactly. It's take weeks because there's back and forth. And then
it's already Thanksgiving, and you're releasing your holiday,
but then
your
you
Halloween
post
video.
it, and now it's like you get some views, and say it's for 2023, and you're like, oh, wow, like, that was great. And then that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, what, I guess, at the end of the day, say you spend, I don't know, let's just say $3,000 on it. You spend $3,000 on it. It talks about company culture, and because it's really a company culture piece. It's an authenticity piece, but it was professionally produced. And then, like you said, it goes out a month later. What's your return on that? And like that's often like what I ask clients. Like maybe arguably you could say, well, we'll get good. People will see that, and maybe they want to work for us, so we can hire better talent. Okay, that's arguable. Maybe, but you don't know, but. Couldn't you have also shot that with your phone, saved that money? Maybe you guys, in-house produced something or just showed some photos or, use the software that like produces something for you and just kind of like arranges the photos in a slideshow. And that shows company culture too. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's authentic. So it's like, oh, somebody here cared enough that they took photos of this, and you know, and I feel like that's the thing, is it's like it'll achieve that. And what did they end up doing is you ended up wasting $3,000 of your marketing budget, your HR budget, whatever that may be, that you could have saved and produced maybe an HR video like FAQ series where now your HR is answering questions, and those questions are things that are commonly asked. And now instead of somebody calling HR to get that information, they can go right on the website or go right into their intranet and then like pull up the FAQ video, get the answer, and now you're saving HR's time. And that's worth the investment, in my opinion, more so than the Halloween thing. Now, you know, arguably, there's some differences. Like, you know, we've had people hire us for anniversaries, like, oh, it's our company's 50th anniversary, so we want to do something. Or, you know, they're doing, hey, it's a special conference that we're putting on, and we're only going to do it this 1 year. Can you capture it? And yeah, I see that. That makes sense. Like, this is something that you're putting a lot of money into, or it's a big deal, and you want to have something.
Yeah, the production is justified.
Yes.
It's not, you know, some throwaway Christmas holiday video.
Yeah.
That, you know, how many people are going to see it?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. Like, so I do feel like cost of production, saving your budget, like those are important things too. And this is where user-generated content can help you out. Like, because maybe that $3,000, like I was saying, that could be put into making your testimonial videos better. Put $3,000 more into that, and now that nets you business. So I think that's a key consideration, in my opinion, is does it make sense? What's the return on this? Can it be done in-house? Can it be, you know, recorded and done something with later? Maybe you produce a professional culture video later down the road, and you have all these clips and things that you can share with the video team that's putting that together. So I think that those things are important. So another thing I want to touch on is a book that I read called The Visual Sale, and that's by Marcus Sheridan and Tyler Lessard. And what's interesting about this book, this is something I highly recommend. Like, honestly, if I could just send this to clients, it's a phenomenal book. So if you're listening and you're like, I want to get started with user-generated content, I don't even know what to record. I don't know what to capture. What types of videos would
I'm so
work?
excited, Bill. Tell me more, please.
Oh yes, this book I would just send it to all of our clients. It's honestly such a great book, and it breaks video down in different sections. It talks about it in marketing, it talks about it in sales, and it talks about it for internal use, and really talks about different types of videos. I want to say there's maybe like somewhere it's either 100 or a little under 100 different types of videos that you could be producing yourself without a production company. Obviously, like, production companies can, you know, produce them too. Like, there's testimonials in there and stuff like that, and we do that all the time. But what's really interesting about this book and why I bring it up is, you know, they talk about in the beginning of this book that with the dawn of social media, with video being as prevalent as it is today, companies need to shift their focus and really think about themselves differently. You know, you may be, let's use, for example, I don't know, popped in my mind, a toothpaste brand. You may be a toothpaste brand. You sell toothpaste. But prior to being a toothpaste brand, you're actually a content creation brand. Doesn't matter what you sell. You could sell, you know, you could be a brewery.
You're your own media company?
You are your own media company.
Okay.
And I feel like that's the important thing. Like, you are a content creator first, then you are your brand.
And that's because before social media, you used to have to pay ridiculous amounts of money on ads and commercials, and then you'd have to pay to distribute them across different, you know, media platforms, radio, television at the time. But now with social media, it's free, right?
Absolutely. Okay. And that's the whole thought process behind it. You have this phone in your pocket. You can start recording video. You could take photos. You can record audio. You are, by all intents and purposes, you're a video production company, and you need to think that way. So, like, and it's not just limited to marketing, because I feel like that's common. Like, people think like, oh, video, like marketing, that's marketing's job. But really, it's everybody within the company. It doesn't matter if you're in HR, it doesn't matter if you're in sales, it doesn't matter if you're in legal. Like, you are a content creator for the company. You may not be the person posting, and that's understandable because there's control over that in a lot of these industries, but and these different companies. But like, you're going to capture that content, and then you're going to be able to send that to the marketing department or to the sales team, whoever's managing those places, and say, hey, I was at this cool thing yesterday. Like, let's say you're legal, because I feel like legal maybe gets a bad rap because people think the law boring. Like, let's say you're legal and you're out doing something where you're connecting with young lawyers and you're mentoring young lawyers or doing like a happy hour thing, and you guys are working together. And somebody from your legal team goes, I'm going to grab some photos of this. Like, this is cool. We're giving back to the legal community. These guys are like, these different people are going to be passing the bar, or they just passed the bar, and we're helping them. So there's content that can be captured, whether it be video of somebody speaking, whether that be photos, and turn it into a slideshow, and then given to the marketing team and say, hey, can we promote this? And everybody needs to be thinking that way, because I think, to your point earlier, people want to see, they want that look behind the curtain. They want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Because, a brand is a name, but like, what does that brand stand for? What do they do? What's their day-to-day look like? Because everybody, their favorite topic is themselves, but they still love to find out what other people are doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do think that's
Gossip's
important.
fun, right?
Well, yeah, and it may be like, how many times do you pass a company, maybe driving home or something, you see a company name and you think to yourself, what do they do?
What do they do? Yeah.
Yeah, like,
what are they doing in that warehouse that I pass every single day?
oh yeah, it's crazy. Like, I live in Parma, and I've driven through Parma, Ohio. For those of you that aren't familiar, that aren't in the Ohio or Cleveland area, and like I was passing a building for years on Snow Road, and I was just passing it, no clue it was Graph Tech. They used to be located on Snow Road in Parma. No idea who they were. Had no idea what they did. And then they moved, and it was like there was this big article written about how they got new headquarters and they moved. Well, here they produced the screen for the iPhone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Parma, Ohio.
Who knew that? You know what comes to my mind is that building on the Shoreway on 90
With the whales?
With the whales on it. Yeah, you drive past and you're like, that's where the aquarium is. And no, that's not where the aquarium is.
No.
So that's what I thought for like 10 years.
I don't know what is in there. Did they ever said what's in there?
I think it's a giant whale. I think they just keep them housed in there in a tank.
Oh yeah, those are the freshwater whales.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so important, and I think that generates buzz for companies, and people go, wow. Like I said, when I found that out, that Graph Tech produced the iPhone screen. I don't know if they still do, but they did at the time, and I was like, wow, like that's impressive. Like I had no idea. And then your mind starts turning, and you're like, I wonder how do they do that? How do they make those? Like, what's it take to produce something like that? How many can they turn out? You start thinking those things, and this is where the behind the scenes look can really be a benefit.
So my thinking is, why would they produce that product in Parma, Ohio, Northeast Ohio? And I think it's because we had an industrialized city at the turn of the century, one of the largest, and not only do we have railroads that run through the city, but we also have Lake Erie. And I know that ships come in and out of Lake Erie from the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
They come down through Canada. So my thinking is like, hey, maybe we had the capability to produce it here, and then we can also ship that product to China, where the phones are actually made.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is where behind the scenes look could be huge, because maybe now all of a sudden you're an advocate for this company, and you're like, hey, I'm did you know that this was made in Parma? And then the benefit there is like word of mouth that could generate, just information for like other contracts for that company that can generate buzz for people that want to work there. There's a lot of benefits of word of mouth, advertising or things like that. And this is where the behind the scenes videos, I think, are very strong. One thing I think that's important that I guess I've kind of skipped through all of this is, the person out there that's thinking like, well, I don't have a budget for video at all, and I don't want to generate content because, like, this is why
I have a secret, and I don't want anyone to know.
Well, it could even be like, I don't have the time. I hear that all the time. Well, we don't have the time. We don't have the time. And as a business owner, I can attest to the fact that I never have the time to do anything. But you have to like make the time, and I think it's so important. And this is why I also think user generated so important, is if you can't afford professionally produced content, if it's not in the budget yet, you still need to put something out there, because the reality of it is, and this is what my thought was, like, there's a book called Accelerating Yes. Todd Hartley wrote it. He's the guy from Video Marketing Mastery. I know I've mentioned him on the podcast, and I really believe in what he talks about in terms of video marketing and video strategy. And he always references the stat that it's like 89% of people don't want to talk to a salesperson until they're ready to make a buying decision. And, you know, and everybody wants to be a salesman for their brand, and people are like, you know, you got people, I don't want to cold call, I'm going to cold call, whatever that may be. But when you don't have any content, nothing, no social media videos, no videos on your website, no nothing.
You're illegitimate.
Well, people don't know anything about you, and it's like if they need information to potentially purchase from you, you need to build a know, like, and trust to some extent. And I really feel like the know is understanding what you do, and obviously the like can be gathered through the video because people can say, "Hey, I like the content they put out," and then if you have other people that you're working with and you're showing the behind the scenes and the customers, and all of a sudden you have these other brands that are working with you, it builds the trust. You can literally build know, like, and trust using video. It's not going to be, and before everyone like goes nuts and goes, no, you need humans to like build know, like, and trust, because I know I'll get that. Yes, you do. But this is what I would consider, if they've never met you, this is a know, like, and trust that you're building. And then once they meet you and find out you're the genuine person that you're portraying yourself to be, boom. It just made it that much easier. And they reached out to you because they're ready to make a buying decision. Like, following this company, I know who they are. I know what they do. I like the content they put out. They seem like good employers. They seem like they do good work. And then look at that. They're producing this for company XYZ in my neighborhood. They trust them, so they must be pretty good. You can really build that. So I feel like if you're listening or watching and you're like, hey, I don't have any content, user-generated content is the place to start. And I guess like kind of explaining this a little further, you know, for people that are maybe like a little skeptical and like, you know, how does this perform? Like, why would this be beneficial? You know, look at big brands. I look at, like we were talking about that before, right? We were looking at Apple. We were looking at Gap. We were looking at all these places, and they have user-generated content that they posted. So they're producing some of their own stuff. You said WWE?
WWE, every single show that they produce, whether it's their pay-per-view, their premium live events, or just their, you know, regularly weekly screening, they're always calling to social media, like, number one trending show on X right now. Well, yeah, because you're the only thing playing, but they still know how to hammer that home.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like if the big brands are doing it, then there's something behind it, because they're not going to waste their time running around with this and doing stuff, because they do have the budget to call in the video production companies.
Yeah.
They have some of the best resources in the entire world, guaranteed. You know,
but
some
word
of
of
these
mouth,
brands.
word of mouth still trumps everything else.
Yeah, that's what you can build that though, using that user-generated content and creating, and that's where I feel like that word of mouth. Like, there are a lot of people on the digital landscape, and it's like, this is why I think UGC is so important for brands. You know, especially like if you have nothing, is how do you generate a buzz about a brand that's just an icon? You're just an icon. You're an image. You know, like, you're an image on Facebook. You're an image on Instagram. You're an image on LinkedIn. They see your logo. Cool. But you have nothing. And it really drives me crazy sometimes, because I've gone to these company pages on LinkedIn, for example, and they have their logo. They have their description. They've liked a few things. They've posted a couple posts. Nothing in video, maybe a couple photos. And I just think to myself, you're missing an opportunity to tell a story.
And they're usually always like generic.
Yes.
Like they're the same. You see another company doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And what helps the other company stand out?
And you can do that by creating your own content, because you can have your own voice. You can have your own look. You can have your own style. This, like the professional stuff, the stuff we do, that's going to come. But this is why I think it's so important. And I think, to even touch on a couple examples, not naming any names, but just some people that I've talked to that we've worked with. You know, we've seen, you know, one brand that I've talked with. You know, they've seen great success in behind the scenes. You know, they've actually seen better success in behind the scenes UGC than they have in more professionally produced UGC. So like stuff that they've actually taken the time to produce professionally. They've seen better results on the things that were more like, okay, I'm just going to capture behind the scenes what's going on.
And it almost seems like that's just throwaway content, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about social media content is you may only use it once. And, you know, like, do you really want to pay us to produce something you may only use once?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Another customer of ours, we've helped them build professionally produced content for their website, which was important. And I talked with them about like, hey, do we need ads and things like that? And they came back to me and said, actually, we're using UGC ads, like people that are using their products and recording their own videos of what they love about their products.
Yeah.
And they're seeing success with that because it's authentic.
And those are subject matter experts?
Not necessarily. Well, I don't know if they're all subject matter experts, but they're people that maybe are identifying with the target market is identifying with them.
Yeah.
And they're using it like, hey, I used this product and it was
it's
great.
like an Amazon review, but it's a video.
Yes. And actually, I recently saw an article, which I'll have to link. So the one woman that we interviewed, Rachel Osavicki from Code 3, she, which I hope to have her on the podcast at some point, but like she's a real sharp marketer. She posted an article through Code 3 about Amazon reviews, and she talked about how in the article that just how video has helped people in terms of like having a video as part of their Amazon like product line. So like putting a video in there, it could be UGC video that came from a customer, it could be UGC video from the person selling the product. But I do think that like when you think about that, I always watch the videos on products for Amazon. So like I think there's a benefit there. It doesn't have to be professionally produced, but it could be something that, the creator or the owner is producing.
Yeah.
So I think those are big things. I mean, hopefully everyone that's like watching and listening, if you're not like keyed in and being like, I need to pick up my phone and start creating some content, like I feel like you're missing out, because this is definitely like what I was trying to get across here. Craziness, video production company talking about DIYing your videos, like we must be like just trying to put ourselves out of business. No, we're trying to make you guys more money and trying to make you more successful, because helping you out is going to ultimately help us, because we want to help you grow, and we can
give you the keys to the car.
Yeah, we're going to produce that professionally produced content for like helping you down the road. Right now, you need UGC, and maybe you already have professional content and need UGC on top of that. Maybe you can't afford professional content, but start making that user-generated content, and you're going to see results. And we'll be here to support you every step of the way, whether it be talking about stuff like this or whether we can be the company that can help you produce more professional stuff down the road. Now, before you run out and start picking your phone up and be like, okay, I'm going to record everything under the sun, stay tuned for part 2, because we are going to talk about, pre-production planning, things to consider, video marketing. These are tips that you want to make sure you have a notebook. Don't do this while you're driving. You want a notebook and you want to write this stuff down, because it's going to help you in that next episode start to plan out what videos you should be capturing user-generated. And then also, it may even give you ideas of videos that you can produce professionally and save those for a later date. So thanks, guys, for watching, and Josh and I will be back in that next episode. Thanks for listening to Watch Time. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
And remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
And if you want your question answered on our podcast, go to flexmediacle.com/watchtime.